Hey, this is Jeff, and you're here with On the Chain. Our guest today is Guilhem Chaumont, CEO and co-founder of X Network. This is a very interesting project that's aimed at bringing blockchain technology to Main Street. They're building an interface to connect blockchain users, to connect blockchain and users, and through their X Cash, their X blockchain, which is really a plug-in, plug and play type solution for companies to really easily integrate blockchain into their business. And then you also have XBank. Now we want to hear and get into that. We're going to talk to Guilhem. We're going to talk to him about his project. We're going to talk to him about regulation and a lot of other interesting and very important topics. And it's all getting ready to start right here, right now.
And now, the HODL Review with Jeff and Chip on the Chain.
Welcome, Guilhem, to On the Chain. We're really glad to have you here. We've got Steve and Chip with us as always as well. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
So, Chip, I know we wanted to get a little bit of a kind of an overview background into X Network. Did you want to start out? I know you had some really good questions.
Guilhem, I really taken a look at your project and wanted to dive a little deeper. I'm just wondering, can you just give like a general overview? Then I had some interesting questions that I wanted to get into.
So to summarize our project in 1 minute, this is a project we have started in July of last year, 2018, where we have basically created a fork of the privacy coin called Monero. And we want to derive that coin to build lots of things, which include a plug-and-play interface for anyone to create blockchain on top of our blockchain and some other features. So right now we are really working at the protocol level, just like any other blockchain project, because it's still very early. So we've been adding public and private transactions on our network. So now we are a hybrid privacy coin. We are heavily working on a new consensus, which is called Delegated Proof of Private Stake, where we are in alpha right now. And we'll actually switch to beta very soon, and that will go live in the next weeks. And finally, of course, the most interesting one and last part that will come in 2020 will be some sidechains features that will allow us then to build everything on top of that. But right now, we are really working at the protocol level, as I said. And from a pure cryptocurrency perspective, this is a no ICO project where the coin was mineable and about 50% of the supply has been already extracted. People can still mine, and when we switch to delegated proof of stake, they will be able to stake. We have started to create many projects already on top of our blockchain. I can name a few. One is called XBank, which is a platform to store your currency without much worrying about the security of your private keys. Another one is called XPayment, which is a payment system embedded on Discord, the social platform, the social and gaming platform, where people can pay to each other. They can create tournaments and things like this. And of course, the last component, which is the B2B component, is really one we are focused on right now, because we are actually finalizing the patent on voting technology. So that's also something that will be out before the end of the year. So yeah, many interesting things. We are heavily working. And of course, last thing, which is also important to mention, we are based in Paris, France, but you could probably have guessed from my accent.
Yes. Well, it could be almost anywhere in the States. We have a big mixing pot here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Xcash. So one of the things that I noticed that you're able to do from a single wallet, you talk about private transactions and public transactions. So how does the private side of this work?
Private transactions were really included in Xcash at core at first when we did the coin, because we did a fork of Monero. Mm-hmm. So for the private transactions, we use exactly the same technology as in Monero, which is a combination of ring transaction and stealth address, basically. So there is no zero knowledge proof, such as on Zcash. So basically, when you will want to send the transaction, you will mix your transactions with 20 other people. At least for Xcash, it's 20. For Monero, it's a bit different, and all the amounts will be hidden using bulletproofs, so that none of the sender, the receiver, nor the amounts are shown to the people, but the blockchain still remains public.
Got it. So something else you mentioned in your introduction, you mentioned the fact that Xcash uses a delegated proof of stake. So what are some of the advantages of using delegated proof of stake?
I mean, consensus and governance in blockchain, it's maybe the biggest topic, and we can see that there are many challenges. If you look at proof of work, for instance, the main challenge, of course, is the energy consumption, and also the centralization of the power, which leads to a worse governance. So for delegated proof of stake, this is something we have reviewed for a very, very long time, because we knew, and at least we felt, that proof of work was not sustainable for the long term. So we reviewed the options, and we choose to go for delegated proof of stake, because we believe that it's really the best trade-off between energy consumption, of course, because it's virtually free from an energy perspective, but also in terms of governance, because you limit the number of nodes on the network. In our case, it's 100. If you look at other projects, such as EOS, it can be in the range of 20. It really depends. But still, 100% of the network can participate, because they delegate their stake, they delegate their voting rights to existing delegates. So we feel that, of course, you lose a bit of decentralization compared to a 100% staking consensus, but this comes also at the advantage of a much faster, a much quicker, and a much more efficient consensus. So that's really, from our perspective, the best trade-off we could think of. And of course, the key difference that we have compared to the other delegated proof of stake is that it's built on top of Xcash, meaning that all the transactions remain private or public at the discretion of the user. That's really important. They can make their stake public while they are voting, but as soon as they want to spend their coin again, they can anonymize the coin. So it's in practice, it's the first anonymous delegated proof of stake system we are building. We think it's interesting for our project, but at the end of the day, this is open source and free technology. So we are confident that even some people will have a look at it and maybe later reuse it.
From a perspective of being anonymous, do you see that there's any regulation or regulatory issues, compliance issues with different countries that might interfere with working with a privacy token?
It is totally true that privacy in the field of cryptocurrency have been on the spotlight for 1 or 2 years now, and we have seen many countries such as Japan and others put a ban on anonymous coin. We are really mixed feeling, because from a pure philosophical perspective, we are convinced that privacy is mandatory, whether or not we talk about cryptocurrency. You know, we have many data issues in general, especially in Europe, and people want to remain private to some extent. So that's really why we have put these hybrid transactions to allow the people to be public and private, because we think that this is the best trade-off for the people, also from a pure regulatory perspective, because, you know, the governments, at the end of the day, they can trace some transactions if they need to. And even from a more strategical perspective, it gives us the possibility to switch to 100% public transactions if we really had to, if we really had a constraint from a regulatory perspective. So we are kind of trying to be strategical here. But of course, privacy can be a big issue. Even France is considering, with the rest of Europe, to put a total ban on anonymous coin. So we will see where that goes. Right now, we are really trying to have a look at it, see what happens, and hopefully, I sincerely hope that our governments will not go the easiest solution, which is to just ban these coins.
In this situation, then, seeing that you have both privacy, say, of the anonymous and the public, do they work in tandem with each other? Does the government then, if they need to track a transaction, is there, let's call it a quote unquote backdoor for tracking, whereas for the most part everything's private, with where it might require a court order to have access to the transaction, or is it just strictly 100% anonymous?
So from a pure blockchain perspective, an anonymous transaction is anonymous, meaning that there is at least no backdoor from a dev perspective. We have not put any backdoor, and that would not make any sense to do that in terms of transparency with our users. This being said, with any private transactions comes a private TX key, transaction key, so that the users can use it to reveal the information of the private transactions. So at some point, if governments do not put a total ban on privacy transactions, we could consider a case where there could be court order for the people to reveal their private transactions by revealing their private TX key. Of course, that will still remain in the control of the user. It's not clear how it would go. So yes, they work together, these two type of transactions, and we think they are extremely helpful from a user perspective, because if you just want to share some coins with some friends, you can remain private so that they don't see your balance. But now if you have to pay your employees, maybe you want to have that public for several reasons. So we really think they work together, but still regulatory is at an early stage. So we need to have all the tools to switch and diverge if it's necessary.
And so I wanted to circle back to the token allocation. So 60% will be mined, 20% is airdrop and bounty pool. You have 10% that's held by the company for development and infrastructure, 5% for private investors. Then there's 5% held by the current founding team and new joiners. What is the total supply amount?
The total supply, max supply, is 100 billion coins. So that's actually a high supply from an absolute number perspective. But if you want to compute any supply, whether it's the mineable supply, the airdrop supply, then it becomes quite easy, because 20% turns into 20 billion.
Also the wallet too. So I see that it's available now for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Are you also going to be rolling out mobile apps for iOS and Android as well? Are those out yet?
I'm very happy that you give me this opportunity to speak about that, actually, because the wallet, the GUI wallet at least that we did, is a bit outdated. It's a wallet we created even before releasing the project. So I think it was relatively satisfactory for the early days of the project, but that's why we've been working for more than 2 months now on a completely revamped GUI wallet. So that's something we aim to release before the end of the year, and it will be available for all operating systems. But because it's based using a specific framework, which is a combination of Angular and Electron.js for those who develop, it will be also able for mobile at the beginning of next year.
So it's coming out pretty quick, 2020. That's awesome.
Yes, yeah. That's been a request from our users for a long time. We've been like, yes, we want to work on it, but we are at the end of the day a small team with no external funding. So we thought we needed to focus on the protocol part. So along with the release of delegated proof of stake, we are having more and more time to allocate for these small things that we've been needing to do for a long time. So yeah, it's
nice.
It's coming.
And also for our audience too, airdrops are pretty popular. So how does the airdrop work exactly?
We really thought that when launching the project, and especially given we haven't done an ICO, we thought we need a fair way to distribute some coins to the people, and not just for those who want to buy or who have some hardware to mine. So we have chosen to go for the airdrop path, which is to create an airdrop and bounty pool of 20 billion coins, so 20% of the max supply. And we've been releasing 1% every month, basically. So now we've released more than 10 or 11% so far, and basically, so for the past month, every month we've been releasing 1 billion coins. So people have to register on our website, on the Xbank actually. And at first it was completely free to get the airdrop, but we've been heavily spammed. So we have started to put some 2FA and phone verification. People have also countered that. So now we are asking a 2 million stake of coins to be put on the Xbank, which is at current market rates about $70. So for those who have been participating in the airdrops and the bounties since the beginning of the project, they already have the 2 million.
Gotcha.
They don't necessarily need to buy. And for the new joiners, we are really sad, but it's the only way to counter the fake abuses that we have in this market. So that's also why we are starting to have more and more bounty to give the people Xcash easily through just helping us. We've been delivering more than $3,000 of bounties during the alpha of the delegated proof of stake, for instance. So yeah, that's some stuff we are trying to do.
So what we'll do is we'll link that down below so that people can go ahead and check that out. And it's always the case where you create something with an idea, then you have people that come in and spam, and you have other people. There's always somebody that's going to be a rule breaker. So it's understandable that you have to put certain measures in place. Where would somebody buy Xcash? Like is it on an exchange? Is it something that's it's purchased direct, or what's the best way to go upon acquiring the Xcash?
From a very high level perspective, I will always say that the best way to acquire Xcash is to earn them, whether you are mining, staking, or helping the team develop the project. Now, for those who want to buy, we are actually listed on several exchanges that you can find through CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko. At the moment, the best liquidity can be found on Stex, where we have an LTC and an Ethereum pair. So I would recommend buying LTC on Ethereum, on a regular fiat exchange like Coinbase, for instance, and then you can get your Xcash on Stex, so stex.com. And we also have a decent liquidity on a Chinese exchange, which we've been partnering and doing many interesting things over the past months, which is called the Cytex. So they also have a BTC pair. So that's two exchanges I would recommend to look out. And in any case, you can find them on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko.
And what's the total market cap right now for Xcash? Where is it at?
So to be frank, this is not something I check on a daily basis, but I would say I guess it's around $2 million, something like this. So gotcha. So we've been, we are not 100% focused on the market cap for many reasons that I have already mentioned in the past. But still, the project is going on its own. Last year we were at $100,000, so it's been progressing despite the very tough environment for altcoins, and more particularly the low market cap altcoins. So we are relatively satisfied with the performance of the coin, but still it remains, a second or third level coins by being around top 500 on CoinMarketCap or something like this.
When we look at when we think of France, we think of Europe in general. When we think about regulation, what's happening with regulation in France? Because in the United States, it's been a real big problem, a big issue here. And so what challenges are you facing over there in France, where you guys are located?
Well, of course, in the field of cryptocurrency, regulation is one of the primary topics. France is a very interesting use case for regulation for many reasons, and also the US. Strangely, France has always been, kind of lagging compared to their counterparts in Europe when it comes to regulation. And this time they have taken a completely different move, which is to say that, no, we want to be first. We still want to have a high level of regulation, of course, because we cannot allow anything to happen. But they really dived early on the topic. And that's why already around 1 year and a half ago, they announced an ICO, a visa for ICO. So basically, we already have a regulation where you can apply to a visa if you do an ICO, and if you respect some framework, you get some stamped that your ICO. It's not mandatory, by the way, but it's very interesting to have that your ICO is at least it seems to be legit. So that's one of the things that France has done. They also recently released a new framework, regulatory framework for all digital assets companies. So it's called PSAN, P-S-A-N. And basically, again, it's not something that is mandatory, but if you are a broker or you deal with cryptocurrency one way or another, this is something that you can request. And if you respect a certain framework, you will have it. And basically, this is supervised by the AMF, so that the French SEC. And I really think that we will need to see how it goes. But I really think that if it works out to be a good framework for regulation, this could be extended, or at least this could inspire a broader regulation in Europe. So I think that France is not at the top of the regulation because, we are doing things at our own speed, but we are doing very, very interesting things. And even Europe, is reviewing this topic quite heavily. I know in the US, it's a very touchy topic, and it's a very complicated topic, it's normal to not dive blindly on these subjects. So yeah, France is really an interesting country to actually work on blockchain and cryptocurrency, I think.
To me that's amazing. Where you look at, and we had a similar conversation not that long ago, but in the 80s, 90s. You had, the software boom. You had, the big competition between Microsoft and Apple. Then you get into the high tech boom of the 90s, into the 2000s, and the U.S. market was always, very progressive and always taking a lead in that space. And to see a complete opposite, and I believe, even from what you're saying, with France always being the last, I think one of the things that we're seeing is countries that were always last are now taking that initiative, because we've seen it all around the world. Look at China as an example, not necessarily the first to come to the stage as a free economic superpower, yet they're trying to pass, specific, regulation internally so the government can launch their own digital asset. Maybe not the best example, but to see countries like France, and then we've seen the Marshall Islands, and we've seen Bermuda, most recently, really embracing, digital currency and blockchain tech, and Switzerland. And, I think it's impressive to see that development, and unfortunately the U.S. is kind of dragging their feet. But it seems like then in France, it's going to be a very friendly environment to develop in and to bring new tech to. Is that the case then?
I think it's the case. At least that's what they are trying to do. The problem is that France has its legacy on many topics, like tax. Tax is one of the legacy we have. It can be quite expensive to operate in France. So
Right.
also they have done many things with that regards. But yes, I think at least they are trying to show a good commitment to really hear the people and ask them, okay, what do we need to do now? And now, it's going to take a long time, but at least they are trying to. What I'm, however, curious is that, and you guys will tell me your opinion, but it seems that the US are much slower on these topics, but still we have hundreds of firms emerging in the US, like Coinbase, for instance. So I'm really mixed feeling, because I still feel that US have not its supremacy on blockchain, but they are still a leader, despite not being a leader on the regulatory part.
I think just from a cultural perspective, business culture, since we always have been in that position, and, really a country built on entrepreneurship and innovation. I think that's taking precedence over the government, dragging their feet, so innovation's coming first. And now I believe it's just more, in recent, really the past year, where you're starting to see the conflict and the tension with the regulation, and trying to operate within a specific framework. But that framework, a lot of it, and the regulation, I think, has to do with, identifying whether or not the digital asset is a security, not a security. Are the ICOs in breach of security laws? And then there's obviously a lot more to it. But many of the companies are starting to feel the strain and the tension, where there's uncertainty. Coinbase is lobbying aggressively. Companies like Ripple, they're lobbying aggressively on Capitol Hill. And there's quite a few of them that are trying to push through some clarity. Things in U.S. government take a long time. And right now it's not the most hospitable of places for, to see things kind of coming together. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting next year or so. Up to our next presidential election and after. I believe it's going to be after 2020 where things are going to start kind of settling down, and I think we're going to get a little bit more focus in the U.S.
Very interesting thing, very interesting, and I could not agree more with you. The entrepreneurial mindset of the American people is definitely helpful. whatever topic they are working on. I was in the US a few months ago, and I was impressed how the Silicon Valley, but it's true for anywhere else in the US, is active. Whatever the topic is, and I think that explains 90% why still the US are playing a big role in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space.
Yeah.
We shall see how that pans out, because there are some current bills. There is a bill called the Token Taxonomy Act that's been sitting in Congress, and it can't even get out of a committee. The committee has to vote on it first to bring it out to the House, and there's all these issues. So it just sits on and probably getting dust on it, collecting dust, and there's a lot of bickering going on both sides, where they're talking about nonsense. Really, we're not talking about. There's a lot of stuff that's not getting really passed. It's not just cryptocurrency stuff and regulations, but there's a lot of stuff. I mean, that token taxonomy updated laws from the early 1920s in this country. There's like 1928, 1933 laws around securities. I mean, it's a long time. We probably should revisit that. And here we are coming up almost on 100 years, right? Pretty much. And we still can't get to the regulations on that. So it is, I think, what are your thoughts, Guilhem, on, from your perspective, on Facebook Libra? Like when they introduced the Libra, and that was a big sort of, I'm just curious your perspective and what you thought of that whole debacle when they announced that. And then there was a lot of pushback worldwide, especially in Europe. There was a lot of pushback.
Oh yes, I can definitely tell you about the pushback that there is in Europe, and more particularly in France, where our Minister of Economy has explicitly said that he had a very, very negative position about this project. My position and my thoughts on Libra, at least when I discovered it, I thought, it's not too bad. I'm a technology guy, so when I look at things, I have to, it's not my fault, I have to look at it from a technological perspective. And I thought, yeah, okay, it's not very complex. But at the same time, if you want to modify things and you bring something that is too complex, then it doesn't work. So I thought, you know what, from a technological perspective, it's probably enough. And then I looked at the governance, because the governance in Libra is really the key point, where they try to onboard lots of companies like Stripe, MasterCard, and others. And I thought, yeah, okay, so the problem, that's one of the problems. It's only a board, of big companies and big American companies. So technology-wise, I thought it's okay, but from a governance-wise, it's only big corporates, and more particularly big corporates in US. Well, for France, it's different, because one of the a French company which is called Iliad is actually in the board of Libra. So for France, we are still part of that project. But the thing is that the thing is that, I mean, it cannot work if you want to build a decentralized project and you have many companies that come from a single country. So I think it's not decentralized enough from a corporate and from a governance perspective. That's really important to say. And also from a pure strategical perspective, I think they went too public too quickly. Maybe they should have started, making partnership with these corporates and do like B2B settlements like Ripple is doing, kind of like not in the shadow, but at least try to get some traction. I think they went too public too quickly and not explaining enough. They should have made more, clear. They should have made themselves a bit clear about who had stakes in this project and so on. So we'll see how it goes. But for me, it sounds like, the project is already killed by itself, because once you've gone this far, you cannot come back. And in Europe, there are huge negative feelings about Libra. So it does sound to me that it will not work, at least the way it is set up right now.
Do you find that the negative emotion or feelings against Libra because of Facebook, invasion of privacy, selling of information, what's the feeling on the ground? And how active are people in France? How active are they on Facebook? Is it a big?
It is part of it, because I mean, in Europe and in France as well, we are starting to get very, very concerned about data privacy. That's why we have the new GDPR regulation. which in short now tells the companies that they cannot do anything with the data of the user, or at least they need to have the consent of the user. So yes, from a European and French perspective, I guess the way most people see it is that we have a new player that is coming in the field of payments, in the field of currency, which is a very, very governmental topic. I mean, it could be anything like technology, like computers or phones, and we'd be like, okay, no, this is already a subject that is owned by corporates. But currency is not owned by corporates so far; it's owned by governments. And so probably the feeling of the governments and the people is that first Libra would try, to create their stable coin, of course, using a basket of existing stable currency. But at some point, what are they going to do? It's going to be the last logical step for them to just emit and create their own currency and then become maybe a known government. And I think people do not want that. At least they do not want that without being involved. And if we have only, if Europe represents, something like 10% or 20% of the users of Libra, they should have at least 20% of governance into what's happening, and that's not the case at the moment, obviously. So I think that's why they are strongly against it. And yes, of course, also the feeling is that there've been more and more data invasion from big companies, which are not necessarily all Americans. So first they knew your name, then they knew your address, then they knew your position, then they knew what you like, then they knew what you listen to, and now they would know what you pay and what you buy. So it sounds like it's the last piece of the equation for them to have everything on you, and I think the people do not really like that.
And I think there's a negative feeling here in the U.S. as well around Facebook. I think there's been so many data breaches where the trust has sort of fallen out, and I do feel like that's really bubbled up worldwide. And when I see they don't pay any attention to the users or their data. But what's interesting is like they really haven't done anything to the design of Facebook. It's the same platform it was 10 years ago, so they don't strive to make a better product for the user or a better interface. Everything's crafted around how can they maneuver a better, stronger, faster sort of a payment where they can extract information from users to then retarget them with ads, which is good. I have to say, when I go on Facebook, I'm always shocked at how well they know me. So I was just curious if we could do a little lightning round. I'll give you like 2 words, and then you give me a choice on them, and let's just something for fun here. So whiskey or wine?
Wine, and red wine.
Red wine, right? So you don't drink white wine then, no?
No, not much.
No, I don't either. I have this theory about white wine. It's just should never be more than like $7 a bottle. It's just doesn't matter. There's no quality of white wine to me. What's your favorite red wine?
There are so many, and in France we are blessed with the wine because it's extremely good and extremely cheap. Every time I go abroad, and particularly in the US, I'm really sad for you guys. So for me, I would go for a simple one, which is the best trade-off between price and quality. It's Saint Joseph, which is a red wine from where actually I was born. It's a decent price for a decent quality. It's like 15 euros a bottle, at least in France. Probably for you, it's like 3 times or 4 times the price. But yeah, I think that's one of my favorite one, because we cannot afford to drink 100 euros wine every day.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing too, because when I was in Italy last month, I noticed that when I went into the grocery store, the most expensive wine I could find was $9.99, but everything else seemed to be $4.99, $5.99, just shelf after shelf. And when I was, I was in Germany this week, and I was same thing. I'm in the grocery store, and all the wines seemed to be reasonable, except they had the $20 or the €20, and that was kind of special. Here you go into the wine shop, and the average price is probably $9.99, $12.99, and then you get up into the 20s and 30s, and then beyond, obviously. But it's rare to find, there's certain wines that you'll find in that $3.99, but there's just going to be one, and typically they're not any good. Unless you go.
I can guess.
No, they're never any good, man. They're always bad.
Unless you go to $2 Chuck. If you go to a Trader Joe's or Whole Foods has a couple that are in that $4.99 price range, but
I've tried them all, Jeff. They're one taste and they're right in the garbage. I'm telling you, man. So you prefer more like a Cabernet Sauvignon, like more of that flavor? Or you like more of like a Pinot Noir? Like, I'm just curious, like what's your normal drinking wine?
No, more like more like Cabernet, I guess.
Cabernet, yeah.
To be frank, I mean, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I like almost all red wines. It's like crazy. Like even like a €5 bottle, I think it can taste really good. So I can drink most of them. I like strong wines from the south of France, from Vallée du Rhône. They usually have around 14 degrees of alcohol. I think these ones are good too. But honestly, there is no like a particular type of wine that I would say that I don't like.
That's good. Yeah, I'm the same with you. I'm more in the red flavor. There's actually some very good wines from California. The most inexpensive one I think that's fairly good at the bottom is something called J. Lore, which is from California. And then also too, my wife is from Chile, so I spent some time in Chile this past July, obviously they got some pretty good vineyards down there as well. Another question, do you prefer going to the cinema or would you rather watch at home on Netflix or something?
I think I will go for the second choice because I'm more a type of person, to stay home and relax.
Nice. And what about Brie or Roquefort? Which one do you prefer?
Brie for sure, by far, by far.
It's an easy choice on that one for sure for me. Renault or Bugatti?
There you go.
What was the first brand? Renault?
Renault, yeah, Renault.
But I will. Allow me to tell you that I hate cars in general. Not much interested into cars, and more particularly, the expensive ones. So I would say Renault. But I do have to say that I love computers, and that's why, therefore, I'm a huge fan of Tesla. All of them. And
even the new truck with the bulletproof glass.
I think it's an interesting one. I mean, we can talk design-wise, okay? So, I mean, in France and in Europe, we don't like huge cars. It's really an American thing. So that's probably not something I would buy for myself. But I mean, again, they are doing something that is interesting. Like, I mean, the performances are just insane. Up to 500 miles of range, 3 seconds to get to 60 mph. Now the design, I mean, of course, is something that I would say is very subjective. I think the geeks would like it because there are many references into it. Personally, I'm mixed feeling. I don't think this is something I would buy, but at least I mean I'm amazed, and I can just say congratulations, for having the guts to release something like this, and to take some risk in a market where people are just used to deliver their new car with new features. Okay, this time you will have voice recognition, fantastic. But you see, it's a bit different. But I'm very interested to hear what your opinion is on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm kind of mixed on it, but I like the boldness of when I look at that, and then I saw another picture where the back actually folds down where it looks more like a traditional truck. I actually drive a truck. Jeff drives a truck. Everything's big here, but we have open spaces. Even in Florida, it's just wide open, right? It's a big country, and most of the stuff was built after, the designs could be, where when you're in Europe, it doesn't make sense to have a big car, especially in cities. It's really very difficult to get around. But what I liked about this, I liked a couple things about the design. First of all, it's very cyberpunk looking. It's very future, but also throwback. It looks like something you would have imagined the future 15, 20 years ago. Like what would it look like today? So there's sort of a nostalgic look to it, which I really like. It kind of, weirdly enough, it sort of had these overtones, kind of reminded me of, they could reboot Back to the Future, but instead of using the car, they'll use the truck, They'll load up something in the back and then they'll reboot that whole series. But, I think the whole Tesla brand, it's funny, the first time I saw the Tesla was actually in a mall. Like I'm walking along, there's the Apple store, and then the Apple store left and moved to a big store. And I'm like, I wonder what store they're going to put in there. They put a Tesla store. So it's weird. You're like shopping for clothes. You can go to the Apple store and then in a mall, you can go buy a car. It's a weird thing. Of course, everybody's sitting in it and playing with all the things. It's no longer there because now you just order them. But the concept was interesting. What I like about what they're doing is they're really reimagining the whole experience of what cars are, what do they mean. 300 miles is one thing, but to go 500 miles and have the power behind it, and then this truck they introduced, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I don't know, I found myself liking it more and more the more I stared at it, you know. In the beginning I was like, what in the hell is that?
Right,
and then
exactly.
when they threw
that's what I thought too. Looking at the curves and the edges, I'm like, is anyone really going to buy that? You know, but you look at the tow capability, right?
I actually
14,000 pounds or something like this.
Yeah, $40,000, which is what, 30 some, probably 35, 34,000 euros maybe. It's not.
Yeah, but in terms of but I think it's impressive. You know, a friend of ours has a Tesla. And I had an opportunity to drive the Tesla, you know, and I think it's really impressive overall, the speed, the comfort, the technology, you know. But we're a very gas motivated country as well in terms of the vehicles that we have, and distance, I think, is a major issue. So, you know, not everybody can exist in that, you know, 300 mile range. You know, you think about it. You know, not everyone's in a position to be able to, you know, rapidly charge. I think this when we begin to see really rapid acceptance of the electric vehicle is when they're going to be able to rapid charge that vehicle from empty to full, you know, in under 10 minutes. You can pull up to the gas station, plug it in, and you're full, and off you go. I think is where in the U.S. anyways we're going to start seeing that adoption. In Europe, you know, I think maybe. You know, I don't even know how you guys, you know, would go about, you know, charging them, because so many people park out on the streets. You know, not everybody has a garage. At least here, you know, you could, you know, people that have the Tesla, they pull in their garage and they have the plug and they plug it in. You pull up to Whole Foods and you can plug it in. You know, there's a lot of areas around where there's charging, but you have to be someplace for a length of time. To me, that's the biggest drawback.
It's, I mean, to be transparent with you, last time I came to the US, I rented a Tesla because I really like these cars.
Nice.
And so far I share 100% of your analysis. The only point where I would disagree is that, you know, this 10 minutes thing of recharging, it's almost already here. When I was charging, I was stopping for like, 20, 30 minutes, grabbing the coffee, and then I'm back. I mean, I thought it was, wow, okay, so we are already there.
Really interesting.
And it's very important to understand that from a technical perspective, the challenge is huge, because actually when we fill our tank in like 2 or 3 minutes with a gasoline car, the amount of power that we are putting in our car is like 1 megawatt or something like this, which is just insane. You know, it's like almost the power of a wind turbine, for instance. And replicating this with electricity is extremely hard. And what Tesla and all the other car manufacturers are doing right now with 250 kilowatt powers is just nuts. One other interesting thing to take also into consideration when it comes to the adoption of electric cars, and that's true for the US and it's even more true for Europe, it's the spread between the price of the electricity and the gasoline. In France, the electricity is about 30 to 40% cheaper than what it is in the US, at least compared to California. But the gasoline is like 50% more expensive. So you actually have an even bigger rationale to drive electric vehicle, also considering that France is a tiny country relative to the US. So I think this is also one of the key points. But yeah, charging is the challenge. And the day you can charge a car in 5 or 10 minutes, for me, it's a win, because, you know, you can afford to make a stop even every 300 miles after all to just charge it for a few minutes. But yeah, we'll see how that goes.
France is mostly nuclear though, right? I think most of your power is derived from nuclear.
So from an electricity perspective, 70% of the electricity produced in France is produced by nuclear power plants. So yes, it's a very nuclear country. To give you another comparison, we have approximately the same number of nuclear power plants as in the US, but we are five times less people. So yeah, it's very nuclear.
We have one down here in Miami, in Turkey Point. So we have one that's down here by us as well. But yeah, it's interesting. You have so much. I don't know. I think nuclear power is inexpensive. It's cheap, but it certainly has its potential issues, as we've seen in the past. You know, I mean, when it goes bad, it goes pretty bad. But I think technology-wise is much better. I don't even know about eating fish anymore, just because, or
really
sushi.
Not from this area, right?
Right. I mean, it's.
whenever you want to talk about these topics, it will be more than a pleasure, because in a previous life I was a nuclear engineer.
Oh,
No kidding.
So yes, it's a very, very interesting topic.
So what do you
wow.
think
How
about
about that?
the two-headed fish? Is that a
What?
the two-headed fish that swim around the shores of the nuclear power plants?
So you mean
Oh, I'm kidding.
fishing near a nuclear power plant?
Yeah, no,
Well,
I was just joking. I was just saying the two-headed fish that live in and around
The two-headed.
the two-headed fish, right?
Sorry, didn't catch that one. Well, but at
Right.
least they are bigger, so it gives you
That's
more.
right. You get more, exactly.
Fish head
Exactly.
stew, 2 for the price of 1. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, no, I
Americans
think,
should love that.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just real quick, and to go back to the idea of the electric car, which I think is important also with all the technology that's being put into it, is the idea of incorporating blockchain technology into the vehicles, from multiple different perspectives. One, from a traffic flow perspective, they talk a lot about being able to regulate traffic flow based on prioritization of the vehicle. So the vehicle is communicating with each other, positioning each other, and understanding what's happening on the network at large. And so if there's an accident somewhere, then the vehicles can reroute and take other paths. I think it could be interesting. Is most interesting. Blockchain can be incorporated from a financial perspective, meaning to then pay for prioritization in the traffic flow. So if I'm willing to pay, $50 to get someplace and nobody else is, it becomes almost like a bidding process potentially, but it allows, your car to be pushed to the front of the traffic line because you're willing to pay for it. And it almost seems like that's the possibility or potential of where that might go. And, for instance, but there's a give and take, because if you're paying, that means someone else is receiving. So that means the cars in front of you are going to are going to be able to receive the payment in order to allow you to pass. It might be smaller, maybe $50 is a little bit of an exaggeration, but it could be smaller in terms of micropayments. This whole process. What are your thoughts on that?
So I actually never thought about this, but I think it's a pretty good idea. It's a pretty good idea because I mean again, and it goes back to the topics of blockchain. Blockchain and cryptocurrency are about digitalization of money in the Internet of Things, after all. So here we have cars, and I was joking earlier saying that I like computers instead of cars, but it's true, cars are becoming computers, after all. They are just numerical objects. So having an economy like the one you described, I think it's very interesting, combined with the fact that autonomous driving will give us more or less 2 or 3 times the bandwidth on highways compared to what we have right now, because people will be able to drive much closer to each other. I think it gives some interesting insights on what the future is going to look like, and I'm sure that at the end of the day, people will be willing to pay. Would be willing to pay to save a few minutes on their traffic. And some people would be happy to receive. So I think that blockchain is definitely going to be part of the future of cars, because wherever we have that data, I think we will have blockchain. At least that's my opinion. So yeah, some interesting thoughts.
Yeah, we have lanes here that you can pay if you have one of those things in your window. You go there and automatically charges you. But I do think that I'm a little worried about autonomous driving, because what I worry about, I like Jeff's concept a lot, but when governments get involved, when the municipality gets involved, when the taxation gets involved, it spoils the soup, because they come in and they say, well, you know what? I know you love taking this route when you go to the office. We want you to take this route, because then the government's going to start, locals will start routing you. It's going to be, it could be a potential for central planning disaster, and then another freedom that might be eroded, because it doesn't matter what you want, it's going to be for the benefit all. Then we start touching the points, the outer edges of losing a freedom, where you just jump in your car and you drive somewhere, and now you're going to be routed somewhere. someone's going to have a better way to get you there, you know. So parts of it I like. I love to just jump in a car and be able to read, you know, emails and respond. Another quick fire question, Twitter or Facebook?
I will have to answer none of them. So I don't have a
Nice.
Facebook account. I created a Twitter account very recently because of my professional position. But you know, I'm relatively young, and for some reason, I did not bite on these things. I'm not a huge fan of social networks. LinkedIn is correct, I would say, but it's going to be very tough for me to make a decision on any of these two. I would say Twitter because the CEO of Twitter is bullish on Bitcoin.
Right.
There you go.
There you go.
Right.
Well, here's the most important question of them all, though. Android or iOS?
So, you know, back in 2007, I was a huge fan of Mac. I bought my first Mac, and then I was a Mac guy for approximately 10 years. I owned at some point an iPhone 4S, which is, in my opinion, the best phone of all time, relative to the time it was built. But by far now, I prefer Android, which is more open and which has just, you know, catch back on the delay it had over iOS. Like 5 years ago, iPhones were just like incredible compared to what the others were doing. Now, I mean, the spread of technology between the two I think is more or less the same. Android is even better on for some things. I'm actually speaking from a Galaxy S10, which is not my favorite phone by far, but I think it's just as satisfactory as an iOS phone. So yeah, I think I have a slight preference for Android. What about you guys?
Well, I'm a Mac guy. So I mean, I've been a Mac guy my whole life, and this new iPhone 11 is incredible. The phone, there's a lot of learning, machine learning behind the actual camera itself and how it processes. I mean, it looks like, you know, it's 3 cameras, but it does a lot too. You can actually shoot something with 4 cameras rolling and then use software to go ahead and then choose your shots. I mean, I think the 11 is a really well done. I haven't been that excited about the iPhone in a couple, but this new MacBook that came out, can we talk about this? 16-inch, 64 gigs of RAM, the new i9 chip. It is just a beast, you know, and you can get up to an 8 terabyte SSD built in. I mean, it's going to run you around $5,500, but man, it is a processing beast. And the stuff that I do, you know, the design work that I do, and also the video cutting, I think this is probably one of the best computers they've come out with that I've been excited about. I've been a little disappointed with Tim Cook in a lot of ways. I think he's focused on the wrong things at the company. And I do think that, you know, I do believe that it's a preference. You know, some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla. And I think that the Android is a very strong platform, but where I really think there's a big difference is when it comes to privacy. I don't see Google moving the same way as Apple is. For example, the Apple OAuth, it allows me to log into a website with my facial recognition and ask me if I want to share an email versus being able to share too much data points. And then when a terrorist is caught with a phone and the US government approaches Apple and says, you need to open this phone, and they're like, we don't do it. We're big on privacy. So I would like to see Samsung, I would like to see Google, and I would also like to see, you know, some other manufacturers out there, and the other, you know, some of the other brands, especially the big Chinese brand, which I will not mention. We know what it is. Why don't they start following suit? I think we've been mined enough with our personal data. So even though Apple's not really up there as far as privacy, they're making some strides and some steps, and that's where I see a key differentiator. If I were to ask you, what is your favorite browser? I'm sure you have your favorite browser. Like, what's your favorite browser that you currently use?
So I've been through many browsers, and at the time, 10 years ago, I was actually on Safari. Right now, I use Google Chrome. I think Google Chrome is I don't know why, it's like the most convenient. I've tried again to go back to Firefox recently. I also tried Opera. I also gave a shot at the new browser Edge when it came out from Microsoft. Apparently, they're going to release a new revamped version. But for now, I think I have a small preference for Google Chrome, and the reason is relatively simple, and it's going to be at the end always the same reasons for all of us when we are captive to a manufacturer. Is that I have Google Chrome on my phone, I have Google Chrome on my computer. You know, it's everything is smooth. That's why I like it.
What about Brave?
Brave is interesting. It's to be frank, it's not something I've dived into, but I think the concept from an economical perspective, from an economics perspective, it sounds legit, but I've never tried it.
Yeah, it's early days. It's still beta, but I think what they're doing is great. I like the time savings. I like the fact that you're able to kill a lot of the annoyances that happen with browsers. And to be honest, I mean, even though I'm on a Mac, I choose Chrome mostly because of the plugins. I mean, there's a lot of phenomenal plugins that just don't work. You know, Safari has 8 plugins. I think they added another one. I think they have 9 total plugins, which is a joke, right? And that's the same problem I have with Brave too. Is that there's so many great plugins you can get that just work with you from day to day and daily life. And you get so accustomed to using them. And then you're right. So I have Chrome. I use Chrome on my phone as well, but I bounce between that and Safari as well. But I tend to use Safari on live streams only because I can kill all the other stuff in the browser natively, which I like. And you have blockers you can use. But Jeff, which one's your favorite one that you like?
You know, it's funny. I use Chrome as well. I think Chrome is, my go-to. It seems to work the best. It has, I work a lot within the Google kind of ecosystem. So I've found Chrome to be pretty good. On my phone, sometimes I'll go back and forth between Chrome. I'll bounce over to Brave. I tried Puma. Puma didn't really work for me. I didn't like it. I always end up going back to Chrome. I think Chrome just they've got the algorithm. It just seems to work well. I've tried to use DuckDuckGoose. They go through that solution and DuckDuckGo, DuckDuckGoose, DuckDuckGo. I don't know. And then I always go back to Chrome again. So that's where it's funny. I'm looking at my desktop and I've got Brave and Chrome next to each other, but I never use Brave on my computer.
Yeah, I only use Brave on my phone, which is really odd. I can't tell you why, but for some reason I have some sites queued up there, but I only use it on my phone, even though I have it for my desktop. They finally released, I think after several years, obviously, the Brendan Eich, who's the CEO there, came over. He was one of the initial, obviously, founders he's the one that started JavaScript, and he's also the founder of Mozilla, which obviously Firefox. And so he left. The whole BAT token is an interesting perspective on what they're trying to do there with rewards and building that into a browser. I like what they're doing there, but it works really well on my phone. I love Puma for reading articles that are COIL enabled, but ultimately what I end up doing is copying it from my Chrome browser. And then when I open a Puma, it says, do you want to paste this link? And I say yes, only because it's enabled. So there's a lot of competing technologies. Guilhem, do you ever see yourself doing something, creating something for Xcash in a browser setting, and with a plugin of some kind?
But the problem is that life is too short and we have to choose our battles, especially when we have limited funding, and especially when we have a project like Xcash, which is really open source and community based. So I think we need to choose our battles. We have many things like this. Like we have probably 20 ideas, like the one you just mentioned, to and that we would like to dive. I think anything is possible. Anything is possible because what you are talking about is already second layer technology, between when you bring it to the users. What we are working on right now is still the protocol, so it's really low level. But once we have something that is efficient, we could totally think about something like this, I think.
I know we didn't get into side chains that much, but the whole idea of being able to spin up the blockchain and build a project upon it is great, because I see a lot of people moving away from Ethereum, even though that was the big thing. And I think a lot of that had to do with the ICOs that were around. Everybody was building on that, but I'm not so sure anymore. I kind of see that, your sidechain, for example, might be a better option for companies or individuals looking to build something else.
Yes, I mean, we are trying to offer something different, basically. And you are talking about side chains. Even with side chains, we are trying to make things a bit different, because basically the way blockchains in terms of privacy work is that you have public and private blockchain, which can do public or private transactions. So you have a combination of four cases. For instance, you have public blockchain with public transactions, that's Bitcoin. You have public blockchain with private transactions, that's Monero. And then you have a whole bunch of private blockchains that we will not dive into. And with these side chains, we are really trying to offer a perspective on these 4 cases. So tomorrow, if people want to create a public blockchain with public transactions, because the data needs to be public for some reasons like regulatory or whatever, they can do it. If we have some corporates that want to share some public information, but only among a set of corporates, they can do a private blockchain with public transactions. And if we have corporates which want to do a private blockchain, but the data needs to remain anonymous, then they can just choose public transactions on top of that. So that's really not type of things that we are trying to bring into the space. Now, whether or not they will be used on Xcash tomorrow directly, it's another question, because we are still a very small project, and we don't know. Maybe we are too early, maybe we are too late, or maybe the timing is just perfect. We'll see, but at least try to innovate is I think something really that we need to have in the blockchain. And when I see the progress that blockchain has had over the past 3-4 years, I think it's lacking a bit innovation. So of course, mostly because ICOs took a whole bunch of money when they not necessarily need to have it. So that's also why we've taken some delays, I think. But it's progressing. When you see the Lightning Network and some things that are happening on Ethereum as well, I think it's very positive. But I still think that's the protocol, at the protocol level at least, we are not any close to have a good protocol like the one we have on internet, for instance. And I think it will take like maybe 2 or 5 more years to have something that is interesting. And that's why we want to dive into these topics as soon as next year.
Got it.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, we've kind of gone over the hour, but this was super, super engaging. I really appreciate that you came on with us today on the chain. We'll definitely look forward to having you back on. And if there's any, do you have any parting words that you want for the audience?
No, I of course want to thank you very much for having me today. It was more than a pleasure to talk about Xcash and also about these little side topics. I'm a big geek, so we can talk about computers and CPUs next time if you want.
Awesome.
So no, of course, I want to thank you. I want to thank as well your audience for all the feedbacks that they have given us during the previous videos and so on. And of course, thank you guys for having me and for having these very, very interesting exchanges on all the various topics that we all like.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, Chip, do you have any words?
No, we have to revisit this topic of iOS versus Android. No, I'm kidding. We don't. I think I've already lost in this forum. I've already lost the battle already. But it's good that you were. It's good that you were on both sides. So just thank you for being here. Really, if anyone wants to learn more about On the Chain, you go to onthechain.io. There's a lot of different contributors that we have. We're going to be introducing some new contributors as well that are going to be joining this team of like-minded people who have really creating engaging content for our audience. So I want to thank everybody for being here today as well.
Awesome. All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.